So I had a whole little speech planned out in my head about how I was going to justify all of the books that I have to show in this video today, but then I thought, you know what? If books are my biggest and really only vice in this world, then I'm doing pretty okay. So let's get into it. Hi everyone, my name is Emma, and today I have a really exciting book haul to share. I broke it up into genre sections, so I'll go ahead and leave the timestamps down below for those different sections, but let's go ahead and jump right in. Oh, okay, I got it. We have our first stack here for this book haul video. I'm gonna go ahead and start with romance. The first one on my list is Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. Catherine Center also wrote The Bodyguard, which a lot of people loved last year. I own that book and I still haven't read it, but I digress. This book is about Sadie Montgomery, and Sadie has facial blindness, so she can't recognize people based on their facial features. She can see, but she just doesn't have any recognition of people's individual faces. So when she falls in love with two different guys, that becomes a little problematic, you might say, for Sadie. So it just looks zany and fun and like a good rom-com, so there's a chance that I might pick this up more towards winter time when the winter blues are getting to me a little bit, and then I can pick up a funny rom-com. And also bonus points for the little dog on the cover. But this is Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. The next book I have on my list is Julia Whelan's Thank You for Listening. For those of you that don't know Julia Whelan, she's actually a really famous audiobook narrator. She narrated maybe all, or at least a lot of Taylor Jenkins Reid's novels. She's won a lot of awards for her narrations, but she actually wrote this rom-com, and it is about two different audiobook narrators, which is so cool. I've heard that this is a rom-com that also touches on some deeper, more emotional subjects, so I think that's why I haven't necessarily picked it up yet. Typically when I go for a contemporary romance at this point, I want something that's light and fluffy and takes no brain cells to read, but this is one that I've still heard is really amazing, so I am looking forward to it. This might be a fun like February read around Valentine's Day, read some good rom-coms. This is Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan. This next book is actually a very new addition to my collection. This just came out on October 3rd, and it is Wildfire by Hannah Grace. Hannah Grace also wrote Icebreaker, which I think originally got really popular as an indie novel and then got picked up by traditional publishers, but this takes place in the same universe. It's a different couple. So one of them is also from the hockey team, I believe, from the hockey team that's featured in Icebreaker, and then it also features Aurora Roberts. So at the end of the academic year, Aurora and Russ have sort of a heated moment at a party, I believe. When they both show up at summer camp as camp counselors, they realize, oh no, I already know this person. It sounds like a really fun kind of forced proximity romance, and I'm presuming that they'll have to spend a lot of time together, so I'm looking forward to this one. And honestly, this was sort of a cover buy, because look at this. For fall, the like peachy, orangey, pinkish colors. And if you look at Aurora, she's holding a steaming cup of hot cocoa, and I can't. There's a log cabin in the back. It's perfect. So I'm actually going on a trip soon, and I thought that this would be really fun to read on my trip. So that is Wildfire by Hannah Grace. Next up, I have a very beloved author combo. That is Christina Lauren. This is The True Love Experiment. So this was sort of an insta buy for me when it came on Book of the Month, but this one follows a romance novelist and a documentary filmmaker who join forces to craft the perfect Hollywood love story, but only if they can keep the chemistry between them from taking the whole thing off script. Ooh! Oh, I just realized that the main protagonist's name is Fizzy. This one seems like another forced proximity romance between Fizzy and Connor. Fizzy is the romance novelist and Connor is the documentary filmmaker. And so as they work on this project together, I'm guessing that sparks fly. Insert Taylor Swift song here. This is The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. Next up, I have a couple of books by the same author. Both of them I got a really good deal on too, so I feel a bit better about this. These are Life's Too Short and Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. So Life's Too Short I actually got at Costco for a really good deal. Life's Too Short is about a travel vlogger named Vanessa Price, but when her half-sister suddenly leaves Vanessa in custody of her baby daughter, life goes from daily adventure to next level bad. The last person Vanessa expects to show up offering help is the hot lawyer next door, Adrian Copeland. After all, she barely knows him. No one warned her that he was the secret baby tamer or that she'd be spending a whole lot of time with him and his geriatric chihuahua. Now she's feeling things she vowed not to feel, because the only thing worse than falling for Adrian is finding a little hope for a future she might never see. I've heard that Abby Jimenez's books tend to also have sort of that emotional punch in with all of the fluff, but honestly this one sounds really interesting. I'm a huge travel enthusiast, so I hope that some of that is kind of featured in this a little bit. I don't know how much it will be since she's kind of past that phase of her life at the point where this is taking place. But again, bonus points for a fun and funky geriatric chihuahua. But this is Life's Too Short by Abby Jimenez. And then also by her, I picked up this copy at Goodwill for like 75 cents, which is always exciting. But this is Yours Truly, which is her newest release. So this one sounds like a co-workers to lovers story. So Dr. Brianna Ortiz and Dr. Jacob Maddox both work at the same hospital. And it sounds really funny. It says that promotion she wants, oh, that's probably going to the new man doctor who's already registering 80 friggin' 7 on Brianna's pain in my ass scale. So it sounds like they start exchanging letters back and forth and building a connection that way, as well as their co-worker relationship. But it also sounds like there are some things like her brother needs like a kidney donation and some stuff like that. So again, some more serious topics thrown in with a sweet love story. But I've heard that people just love her books, especially Part of Your World was really popular. So I am excited to dive into these. I haven't read her before, so I got to see what all of the hype is about. And the color is really fun and festive too for a rom-com. So this is the last romance for my haul today, but that is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I have so many books in this stack. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. This is definitely the biggest part of this haul. You can't tell by the size of these stacks. So this is the fantasy portion of the book haul. Quite a few of these books are by Sarah J. Maas, so I might as well just go ahead and do all of her books at once and get them out of the way. The first ones that I'm going to show are from the Throne of Glass series. I just picked up the Assassin's Blade, which is the series of novellas that go before the start of the series. And then I also have Heir of Fire, which is number 3 on the series. The Throne of Glass series follows Selena Sardathian. She is a trained assassin, and then when Throne of Glass starts, she is basically in a work prison, and then she is taken by the prince of the king who conquered her lands to compete in a series of trials to become the king's assassin. So I read Throne of Glass last spring, and then in September I just read Crown of Midnight, and I wasn't like a super giant fan of them, but I liked what Crown of Midnight set up for what would come later in the series, so I'm still intrigued. I am so confused about reading order though, because these are prequels, so you would think that you would read them before you start the series. But then there are also people that say you should read them after the first book but before Crown of Midnight, but obviously it's too late for me to do that. And then there are other people that argue that you should read them after the second book but before the third book, or you can really read them anytime in between Crown of Midnight and Queen of Shadows. So I don't know when to read this book. I really don't know when to read this book. I don't know what the best plan is, but I have it, so whenever the perfect time strikes to read it, I will be prepared. And then, like I said, Heir of Fire is the third book in this series. This follows on the events of books 1 and 2. I hate to talk about this one too much, just in case you haven't read Throne of Glass. I don't want to be spoilery at all. But like I said, I am really excited to see where this one goes based on the things that book 2 set up, even if I wasn't a huge fan of how that one was plotted out. Regardless, I am very excited to dive into both of these, so I will be doing that very soon. And then to round out the Sarah J. Maas portion of this haul, I have the Crescent City series in their newly released exclusive Barnes & Noble paperback editions. I love these. They are works of art. This is book 1. This is A House of Earth and Blood. So this is the first book in the Crescent City series, and then this is book 2, A House of Sky and Breath. So originally A House of Sky and Breath was only still available in hardback, but then when this one released in paperback, they went ahead and redid the other cover as well. So they are just absolute works of art. Like, I can't even explain to you how beautiful these books are. The third book in the series is coming out in January, and I only have one book left to read in the ACOTAR series, so my plan is to read A Court of Silver Flames and then dive into Crescent City, so I am ready for the third book in the series at the end of January. I know these ones take place in kind of the same universe as ACOTAR, but they are set in an urban fantasy type setting, and I haven't read one of those in I don't even know how long, so that'll be really cool. I'm interested to see how I like that kind of setup, but I've heard amazing things, obviously. So again, these are ones that I will definitely be getting to this winter so that I can be ready for the final installment of this trilogy in January. The next book I'll talk about is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is the first book in the Caraval trilogy. This takes place in the same universe as Once Upon a Broken Heart. The Caraval trilogy comes before the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, but you can also read that one without reading these. That's what I did. I'm still waiting for that third book. I'm so excited for it to come out at the end of the month. But since I loved books 1 and 2 in that trilogy so much, I thought I'd go back and read Caraval. So this was actually the first book that I read in October, but it follows the story of Scarlett and Donatella Dragna, who live on a remote island with their father, who is pretty awful. But there is this traveling magician that goes around to different parts of the empire, and Scarlett and Donatella are both really intrigued by the types of shows that he does, and they would love to go see this. And their grandmother tells them stories about when Caraval came to their island originally and what happened there. But after writing letters for years and years and years, Master Legend finally invites Scarlett to participate in his carnival, and they have to decide, are we leaving the island? Are we going? Yada yada yada, and lots of adventure ensues. So I highly recommend this trilogy. I did like Once Upon a Broken Heart better, but I also really love this one. I ordered a copy of the second book in this trilogy, which is Legendary, off of Pango Books, which is supposed to be based in the US, but it somehow is coming from an international address, so I don't really know what's going on, and it hasn't arrived here yet, even though I ordered it a couple of weeks ago. But you know, I'll read it when it gets here. But that is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I have a couple other YA fantasy novels. The first one is Shatter Me by Tahera Mafi. This one has just gotten so much hype and so many people love it. I kind of just had a little bit of FOMO and I found a really cheap copy of it, so I got it. But this story follows Juliet, whose touch is fatal, but the reestablishment has plans for her, plans to use her as a weapon. So I believe she starts out this book imprisoned, but then I've heard throughout the series there's also a really cool love story, so I am excited to read these. I just need to rip off the band-aid. I'm also not sure if I'm going to buy the rest of the series, because quite honestly, the huge eye on the front cover is a little bit alarming to me. I don't know, maybe that's a personal thing. That is Shatter Me by Tahera Mafi. Then up next, I have Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. This is another YA fantasy classic. This one follows the story of Mare and her family, who are lowly Reds, which means that their blood is red. But then there's kind of an elite class whose blood is silver, and they have supernatural abilities that make them nearly gods. But when Mare discovers an ability that she didn't know she had, the Silver King is forced to hide the impossibility of her power and pretend she's a long-lost silver princess betrothed to one of his sons. So she's sort of a fugitive in the sense that she has red blood, but she has magical powers which shouldn't happen, and so they're hiding the fact that she has red blood by hiding her amongst the Silver King's family. It definitely sounds good. I know a lot of people love this one too, and the whole like kind of fugitive thing and that tension around like, oh, will people find out? Will people find out where I'm from? It sounds kind of fun. I'm also excited to give this a try, and that is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Up next is a book that really took the book world by storm last winter, and I just missed the bandwagon, but that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I ordered this off of Book Depository. RIP, Book Depository, you will be missed forever. This is a really fun paperback edition with silver foiling on the front, and this is sort of a dark academia book, which I always feel like is great for November. August is kind of a fun summer to fall transition where you might read a little bit of mystery, things like that. September is much more fall, where you start getting into some of the specifically fall and maybe spookier books, and then October is all about spooky, witchy vibes, and then November, it's getting closer to winter, it's getting dark sooner. For whatever reason, sometimes it just feels more closed in, and during those moments, I find myself really wanting to read some dark academia. So I think that this might be a November read for me. So this one is about Robin Swift, who is born in Canton and then is brought to England by a mysterious guardian. But it takes place mostly at Babel, Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation. So this is a dark academia that also really focuses on language and translation, and also deals with themes of cultural identity and imperialism and colonialism and some of those darker elements as well. And then there's also some magical realism thrown in there, and I am so curious to see how it all ties together in this story. So I will be reading this. I will get to this book so soon. I think I've just been intimidated by the sheer chunkness of this novel. Like, it is, gosh, it's over 500 pages, and this is a very tall book, okay? They are big pages. It's intimidating, but you know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. While we're kind of talking about dark academia, I'll go ahead and share the Atlas 6, and this is by Olive E. Blake. This is about a magical secret society where every decade, I think only 6 students are admitted into a competition for entry into the society. So there's magic going on, a series of challenges, intellectual stuff. So this is also one that I am really excited about. And then I've also heard that there's some fun enemies to lovers romance in here. So this one also fits the bill. What I was saying, I love to read dark academia in November. I think that this will probably be going on that TBR. That is The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. Okay, I only have a few left, which is exciting, but I'll go ahead and talk about Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. This is by Gabrielle Zevin. Gabrielle Zevin also wrote the storied life of A.J. Fikry, which was one of my favorite books last year. It is so heartwarming and cozy and a love letter to books and literature and the power of reading. I love that book, so please read that one if that sounds like your vibe. But this one is a little bit different. This one actually centers around video game design, I believe. So it's a pair of people who are really good friends, Sam and Sadie, and it looks like it actually spans about 30 years, which is cool. So it goes from sort of when they were really good friends in college and had some of their major success, and then jumps forward and you see how all of this has affected them and how their friendship and relationship has morphed over the years. So I don't know a ton about this one, and I'm kind of wanting to keep it that way just because I feel like it would be a fun one to go in pretty blind. I know though that a lot of people that I know personally have loved this book, and I'm so excited to read it. I need more reading time so I can get through all of these wonderful books, but that is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Next up is The Wishing Game, and this is by Meg Schaefer. So for this one, there's a mysterious island called Clock Island, I believe, and there is an author who wrote really famous children's novels, and then it's been radio silenced. Nobody really knows where he went or what happened to him. And then suddenly a new book is announced by the author, and the author is holding a contest at his home on the real Clockwork Island. And Lucy, one of our main protagonists, is one of the 4 lucky contestants chosen to compete to win the one and only copy. So this one has a magical competition, a magical island, mystery surrounding this author. I love when books have these books inside of them that really play an integral part of the plot. Like, I just find myself wanting to read them so badly, and it really adds to some of the intrigue and the wholeness feeling of this universe. So I'm really excited to read this one. It is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. 2 more for the fantasy portion. The first one I just got in the most recent Book of the Month box, and that is The Unmaking of June Farrow, and this is by Adrienne Young. Adrienne Young also wrote the Fable series and Spells for Forgetting, so she's already a very established fantasy writer. This one sounds like a crossover between mystery and fantasy, and it also takes place in the South, which is kind of fun. So it's in Jasper, North Carolina, and June Farrow is waiting for fate to find her. Sounds like her whole family line has sort of been cursed somehow, and then after her grandmother's death, June discovers a series of cryptic clues regarding her mother's disappearance, except these only lead to more questions. But could the door she once assumed was a hallucination be the answer she'd been searching for? The next time it appears, June realizes that she can touch it and walk through the threshold, and when she does, she embarks on a journey that will not only change both the past and the future, but also uncover the lingering mysteries of her small town and entangle her heart in an epic star-crossed love. Gah. Like, do you see why I had to add this to my Book of the Month box? It is so interesting sounding, and it's gotten great reviews, so this one is definitely going to be on my October TBR for sure. So I'd love to get to this one this month because it just sounds magical. So I love the crossover between mystery and fantasy, some magical realism, a cursed family line. It's giving like practical magic vibes. I'm here for it. And here we have The Cloisters by Katie Hayes. This was actually a gift. Someone was getting rid of this copy and they let me have it, which is so nice. But this one is about Anne Stillwell. She's working in New York City at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, but then this one gets a little funky because then there's this whole thing about like tarot cards and kind of dark magic. Again, I kind of want to go into this one relatively blind, but the whole like tarot magic system, academic obsession, so it sounds like another dark academia novel. It sounds like the fall vibe. So this one honestly sounds perfect for when I'm in that dark academia mood, and that is The Cloisters by Katie Hayes. So I know I said a couple of books ago that I only had 2 books left, but I lied because I remembered the book that I have now is one that I just got and it fits this category. So one second. Okay. This one is Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. Alex E. Harrow wrote The Once and Future Witches. She wrote 10,000 Doors in January. She has some really popular books out, and this one just came out on October 3rd, so it was also featured in my anticipated fantasy releases video. But this book follows the story of Opal, who lives in a pretty kind of washed up, forgotten coal mining town, and she is about 26 years old, I believe, but she also takes care of her younger brother because her mother has passed away. And in this town of Eden, Kentucky, there's this really mysterious house that nobody really knows quite what's going on, but it's been a source of mystery there for several generations since the 1900s. And Opal feels like she is continuously drawn to this house. I hate to talk about this one too much because I don't want to give too much away, but it has some really, really cool spooky house vibes, chilling and unnerving, and you're like, what is going on here? So for the month of October, it's really pretty perfect. The haunted house is on point. The characters are fun. There's some really funny lines in this as well, so I'm really enjoying this. And it is Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. Up next, I have a few classics that I've gotten recently. The first one is an anniversary edition of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and this is by Douglas Adams. I love this copy in particular because it looks like an embroidered sweater. So that was actually probably a pretty big part of me deciding to purchase this after all these years that it's been out. But I've heard that it's just really funny and zany, and it's also very short. So in a time where I'm just wanting a quick little read for some reason, this is going to be a great option. Next I have Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, one of the greats. This one follows Marianne and Eleanor, who are sisters, and then there's a love interest that comes in. It's very perfectly Austen. This was one of her earlier novels, I believe, in terms of publication. And I meant to read this before I went to Bath for the Jane Austen Festival, and I didn't get around to it, so, you know, I tried. But this is also one that I would love to pick up soon, and I love this edition with all of the kind of birds on the cover, so it's a really pretty copy as well. So that is Sense and Sensibility. And then last but not least, I picked up Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is a really fun edition with actual illustrations, like woodcut illustrations. So, like, to give you an example, look at how pretty that is. I'm such a sucker for all of these, like, in-text illustrations. They're just so fun. Oh, that's fun. That's so, like, it's so cool. I also felt like I wanted to get this one, A, because it's spooky season, and B, because Mary Shelley also wrote a whole lot of Frankenstein while she was in Bath, and I went to the Mary Shelley Museum while I was there, so it was also kind of a fun memory for me to pick this up. So I will also plan on reading this soon because it's so perfect for October. I went to grab the next stack of books and realized that I had yet even more fantasy books to add to this book haul, so you know what? Here we go. First up is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Now, I did already have a copy of this, but I'd loaned it out some, and it was looking a little rough, and it was just like a book of the month copy. This one is a collector's edition with sprayed edges. And then it also has a really beautiful cover and gold foiling on the front and the side, and it also has a ribbon bookmark. And I enjoyed this book so much that when I saw this book on Book Depository, again, RIP Book Depository, I really, really, really wanted to add this to my collection. So this is the illustrated anniversary edition, and it also has some really cool illustrations, like this one here of the constellation and Addie LaRue. It's so magical. I really loved this book when I read it, and I'm so excited that I have it. Next up is Half a Soul, and this is by Olivia Atwater. I also just realized that Alex E. Harrow has a little quote on the front. She says, "Whimsical but never frivolous, sweet but not sugary." I loved it. So, love that endorsement. This one is a Regency romance, which I do love a good Regency romance when I'm in the mood. They're just a fun little romp. But this one is about Theodora Eddings, who goes by Dora, and she is trying to find a husband, but that's a bit tricky when you only have half a soul. So I'm excited to see how those different themes play out. And when I heard that description, I knew that it was right up my alley. So this is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. Okay, and the last fantasy book, like actually for reals, that I have as part of this haul is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This is about an orc who decides that she is past that part of her life. She wants to settle down and live calmly, and so she opens a coffee shop in an area that doesn't know what coffee is. And quite honestly, this sounds like everything that I would need to heal my heart and soul after a bad day. It sounds so cozy, and I know that it got so much praise this year, and I am really, really, really excited to read this. I was so excited when I saw that it was part of a buy one get one half off deal at Barnes & Noble, and I snatched packaged it up. This is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Alright, and last but not least, we have some mysteries. Sometimes a good mystery is really just what you need, so it's always good to have a fun new option. This is again one that was given to me that someone had but didn't want anymore. So this is Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. This is about a group of older women who are assassins, which is honestly like all I really need to know about this one to know that it will be interesting. It's a group that has worked together for a long time. It seems like the agency that they work for is starting to lean more towards younger recruits and a more technological approach. But when these women are given a new case, they kind of prove that sometimes, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they've still got some tricks up their sleeve. So this one sounds really fun. So this is Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. I have some YA mysteries up next. So last year I read the Inheritance Games and I really enjoyed it, and I actually won a gift card to my local bookstore. So I went ahead and got the rest of the series with that gift card. So I got the Hawthorne Legacy and the Final Gambit. These are books 2 and 3. So this series starts with Avery, who is a teen that's really hard up against it. She doesn't really have any parental figures in her life, and she's living with an older sister, but it's not a great situation. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, she finds out that she's an heir to an obscenely large amount of money and a huge estate from someone that she doesn't know at all. So then when she goes for the will reading and everyone finds out what's happening, the family is obviously very confused, but then it has kind of a Westing game, Knives Out twist, where everyone has to sort of play this game to figure out why all this money was left to Avery instead of his family members. Like I said, I love the first book and how puzzly and twisty it was, so I'm excited to pick up books 2 and 3, and it's just so nice to have some of these options on the shelf waiting for me for that time where it just feels like the right thing to read. And then next I have Truly Devious, and this is by Maureen Johnson. This is a really popular YA mystery series, and it takes place at a boarding school, which has all of the fall dark academia vibes that you could hope for. So basically there were a series of kidnappings or murders that happened a while ago, and then nobody really solved the case, and then at present day it happens again with the same kind of little note left behind. Stevie Bell is determined to solve this cold case, and it kind of follows that mystery from there. It's probably going to be a pretty quick read, and when I'm in the mood for kind of a short, twisty, dark academia YA novel, this will totally fit the bill. And the last book in this book haul is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. This is a twisty one where Evelyn Hardcastle basically dies over and over, but I think through each death you see her death from a different perspective, and it kind of helps you piece together like what actually happened. So it's a mystery, but it also messes with time and multiple POVs, and you kind of have to sleuth it out. I've heard that this one can be a bit confusing, but then it's a really satisfying payoff. This is one that I'm definitely looking forward to. A good friend of mine loved it, and it has such cool Art Deco vibes that I figured for like a good winter Agatha Christie-esque mystery, this is a really, really cool option. So that is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. Thank you so much for watching today's book haul. Obviously, I have a lot of good reading ahead of me. This also didn't include books that I had hauled in recent videos, so I recently did a UK book haul where I shared all of the books that I bought while I was abroad, and then I did a recent bookstore vlog where I shared what I bought as well. So if you are interested, I will go ahead and link those videos down in the description, but let me know if you've read any of the books that I hauled today, or if there are any that are also on your TBR. But until next time, I hope you have a wonderful week, and happy reading!